what all goes inside the calculation of gold pricing, as well as who are the big players that affect the gold pricing.
Most of the fast-paced AI-based chips are using gold for their transmission.
Right.
And gold is a great conductor. Like this year itself, there's one number, just one number I like to share, and that'll be interesting for your audience. The investment demand of gold.
Myth or not, real gold can be replaced with lab-grown gold.
Myth or not, AI can predict the gold movement accurately.
Joining us today is Mr. Sachin Jain, the regional CEO of the World Gold Council. With over 2 decades of experience across the jewelry and luxury sector, including leadership roles at De Beers, Mr. Jain has been closely involved in shaping how India views gold, not just as a tradition, but as an investment, a store of value, and a global financial asset. Today, he joins us to discuss the business of gold, how the industry is evolving, and why gold continues to hold such a unique place in the Indian economy. We wholeheartedly welcome Mr. Sachin Jain.
Hi Sachin ji, thank you so much for being here with us and taking out your precious time to help us decode gold and what all it stands for.
So first and foremost, a hearty congratulations to both of you. I think your UnSerious Money conversation, I think, is going to be very interesting, and your viewers are going to love it. So all the best. It's a great endeavor, and I'm really privileged and honored that you've got me here. So thank you.
Thank you.
So let's jump in on the fundamentals of gold. A lot of people think कि gold का price decide होता है say धनतेरस या दिवाली पे gold की buying ज़्यादा होती है, but as we know, Indian jewelry market only affects gold prices in a very minute manner. There are a lot of global players at play. So we would love to hear and understand from you what all goes inside the calculation of gold pricing, as well as who are the big players that affect the gold pricing.
So you mentioned about the pricing of gold, and you know, it's important to understand that gold is a part of a social fabric of India. You know, we all have perhaps grown up seeing gold. We've seen gold both every geography, but also economic strata. Everybody sort of consumes gold. But if you take a step back, 30 years back, the rule of gold and the consumption of gold was sectorally very different and geographically very different.
Right.
And I think why I'm giving you this background is that you'll get clear in terms of how gold gets priced, which is what your question. So 30 years back, central banks were net sellers of gold, and the main usage of gold was primarily jewelry. That's how it was. Fast forward to today, 2025, let's say most recent, there are different sectoral usages of gold and different geographical consumption of gold.
Right.
In the sense that Western markets, which used to be dominant consumers of gold, are not so much dominant, and developing markets are the dominant consumers of gold from that sense. So India, China, Middle Eastern markets, we all put together consume about 74% of gold, right? Which is interesting. And sectorally, a lot of things have changed. So earlier, as I said, सिर्फ ज्वेलरी यूज होती थी, सेंट्रल बैंक्स वर सेलिंग इट. आज की डेट में अगर आप देखें तो काफ़ी चीज़ें चेंज हो गई हैं. Sectorally, if you see, there are 4 or 5 areas of consumption. So jewelry, candidly, yes, of course, it's still a very important element. So about 30% of the gold every year gets consumed in jewelry. See, 30% where earlier it was almost 90% plus. Okay.
Oh, wow.
About 42% of gold is used for investment demand. All right. So which is I'll talk a little more detail about that. Central banks and nations are buying gold. कि आपके देश की strength, आपके देश की एक important pillar is built on how much gold you use. And over the last particularly 3 years, this rally has begun, and we work very closely with central banks, and we can talk more about that in detail later. But that is a very important segment. So about 21% of the global gold is consumed by central banks.
Oh, wow.
Then fourthly, we have another segment, which is technology. And you know, earlier, 30 years back, we used to, you might have seen some old, आपने शायद, you know, Indian villains देखे होंगे who have gold teeth. तो आपके होते थे, David प्राण के बहुत होते थे, और अमजद खान के होते थे, and stuff like that. So usage of gold was in dentistry. But today's time, with what's happened to price of gold, I think very little people, or very few people have a gold tooth. And certainly with you millennials and younger people, I don't know whether there'll be fascination of having a gold tooth. But other segments have evolved. Right. And most important segment that I see a lot of promise is the democratization of artificial intelligence. Most of the fast-paced AI-based chips are using gold for their transmission. Right. And gold is a great conductor. And high-quality chips use gold. Like look at a typical German car today, and even the Indian cars today, 10 to 12 years back, and I'm not talking 30 years back, every average car used to have 4 to 5 chips in a car.
Right.
Okay. And that was pretty much it. and they could be of different levels of quality and stuff. Typically, in any modern car today, you'll have at least 100 to 150 chips, right? And that's how the car today runs. And leave aside the autonomous car. I'm not even getting there because the number will be perhaps even bigger.
Yeah.
But most of the dependable things, for example, what do you call that? When you have a collision,
Right.
the
The airbags.
airbags. So most of the important ones only use gold because the dependency is highest.
Supremely high, yeah.
So I think also with the world moving towards more democratization of AI, about 7 to 8% of the world's gold is getting used in technology. Renewable energy systems are using gold as well. So what's changed is the consumption is a completely different gamut. And you said India, we consume give or take about between 700 to 800 tons of gold every year. Globally, the consumption touches to 5,000 tons. So
Right.
one is we are a dominant consumer, but most of the consumption is largely led by investment demand, central banks, and global plays happening. The price of gold gets decided today at the LBMA, AM and PM price. In fact, we're doing a lot of work as to how we can become a dominant player there as
lovely.
India. But the pricing of gold is purely led by global forces. Of course, demand and supply is the base, but also their investments, their about projections. Like this year itself, there's just one number I like to share, and that'll be interesting for your audience. The investment demand of gold, in INR terms, we're talking about 18 lakh 70,000 crores worth of gold got traded. Now, 18 lakh 70,000 crores of a product or a commodity or something that has tangible liquidity is moving every day from me to you to you to a country to a company, all of that, which makes gold as the most liquid asset on planet Earth.
Right.
Now, these are the forces on which gold prices gets dependent. And while we say that, because Dhanteras is coming, price might go up. Yes, that's true for a very temporary factor because price gets decided in every country based on the physical availability, their premiums and discounts and all of that. Of course, those things impact, but not so much. It's more global forces, and hence gold's today's worth and gold's today's importance in the global context is an all-time high.
Oh, wow.
I mean, there's a lot of flux happening in the world. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen tomorrow. What's going to be the leadership of America saying tomorrow, or leadership of China saying tomorrow and stuff. But gold has proven to be that anchor of sorts,
Right.
where as families or as nations or central banks or whoever who has it has some kind of saying that it's something strong. कुछ जैसे बोलते हैं कि वो ये कुछ एक दृढ़ता है, isn't it? It's a strong foundation or a pillar that I can hang on to. So gold is proving that, and I think it will even more in the current context.
Absolutely. Over centuries and millennials.
Just one quick thing before we move to our next segment. We've spoken about LBMA before. I think just for our viewers, could you explain what that is?
LBMA is a London Bullion Market Association. They're based out of London, and what they do is that they set out some very high standards of operation within the gold value chain. Refiners, bullion traders, how gold flows, and they've done a phenomenal job in maintaining that illicit gold doesn't come in the picture. And what we say of gold is purely a reflection of demand and supply. And they come out with an AM price and a PM price, and it's indicative price. And every market then adjusts to saying if the LBMA price is this, and this perhaps a little premium or discount. So that's what the role of LBMA. It's a very important role that they play.
Thank you.
As you mentioned, the gold prices are driven from the London LBMA rate, and then we multiply it with Forex and add on custom duties to it. Sometimes we see in the market in India कि Delhi का gold rate और Bombay के gold rate में कुछ difference होता है, Bangalore के gold rate में कुछ difference होता है, and people are often confused and they feel like someone is cheating them or not. But there are a lot of things that happen once the gold is imported and sent to these markets. So could you quickly just opine on?
Actually, it's a very good question, but I think the answer is also pretty straightforward in this. And the fact is that in our country, everybody, I mean, I shouldn't say everybody, most of us have a family doctor and most of us have a family jeweler.
Right.
And the role of family jeweler is a very deeper role. I mean, he's been a friend, guide, store of, is a banker and advisor and all of those things. And hence there's a great assertion saying that I'm going to go to my family jeweler to consume jewelry, and gold tends to be an important consumption pattern there. Prices of gold are different, not just in two different cities, but on the same street between two retail stores next to each other as well.
Right.
And why is that? Because my belief on purity, my belief on, I can always go back, your design, everything matters. And hence, the fragmentation of the gold industry is the reason why primarily this happens. Because हमारे देश में, there is no one number, and as World Gold Council, we are actually going to do this survey now. We're already on it. That what is the number of jewelers in our country? It's a simple question to answer,
Right.
but every time I go to any platform, every association has a different number that people stand on the stage and talk about. So the idea is to simplify a few things, and hence the fragmentation of jewelry industry is so wide
Right.
that 3 lakh jewelers were registered, and perhaps another 100,000 that are not registered is the extent of extent of fragmentation. And yes, the pricing tends to be a little different, but broadly, if you see, the difference isn't dramatic.
Right.
It's in the same lines of some sorts. Now, if you go in deeper of that, the landing ports of gold are only 3 in this country, and hence, if you're buying gold in the eastern part of the country or perhaps the northern part of the country, the prices will be different because of simple issues on travel of that and transportation of that. And I think the last play also is that how much of capital deployed and how much is your
Right.
holding power. I think it's really about, because of fragmentation, I could be a very small jeweler or I could be a very large jeweler, and my economics could be completely different, and hence that gets impacted on the price. There are certain more conversations that I keep hearing now that people are using the gold rate and a discount on gold rate as a base to sort of get the consumers in. And I think it's purely a reflection of, again, capitalism in terms of what you can hold and what you can offer to the consumer.
Right.
The good part is, and I think that's a very important good part that we should recognize, और हमारे भारतवर्ष में ये पहला ऐसा कदम उठा है, and हर भारतवर्षीय को who's particularly listening to you guys should be one proud of and be comfortable that ours is the only nation in the world where UHID on every jewelry piece is a requirement by law.
Right.
So today you cannot sell a jewelry piece by law. I mean, I'm not saying that people aren't selling it and stuff, but that's a law that every jewelry piece has a unique number that consumers can go, put it on the website, put it on the app, and that shall tell you what the purity of that jewelry piece is. And from where we were, where there was absolute opaqueness to not even knowing what I'm buying, to the games getting played, to coming to a point where by law, everything that you're buying certifies your purity is great, and we all should feel good about it, both as consumers, but feel proud about it as an industry that we made it happen. So I think things will simplify. I see a time that I mean, if you see what's going to perhaps happen in the future of one gold rate, perhaps it might be a day. I don't think it's a burning issue, but what it'll do is that if there is the point of entry of gold becomes only one.
Right.
I mean, for example, today we at World Gold Council had conceptualized and worked with the government on the idea of the first gold spot market that happened in Gift City. IABX got established.
Right.
And if that eventually becomes the only point of entry, then banking role evolves and the secondary market roles gets more calmer. I think there could be a point where in a large market like ours, there could be one rate. But I don't think it's a deterrent of any sorts.
Absolutely.
And it has logical reasons why it's slightly different from A to B.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that answer. That was really, really helpful. And to your point, the UID, being from a jeweler family myself, we started doing hallmarking in the 80s and 90s when it was unheard of. And when I came into the business, it was very surprising to me that hallmarking wasn't even compulsory by law until like 5-10 years ago. So we see a lot of customers, as you said, right, depending on their family jewelers and depending on them for the right information. But now the standardization of all these metrics definitely helps all of us in not being cheated.
Yeah, sure. And I think it's a great step because you see, again, and the point is that our market, go back 25 years, right? And 25 years back, the price of gold was very different than what the price of gold is today. Even then, as a nation, we used to consume 700 to 800 tons. Even now, we consume 700 to 800 tons. And even then, if I read the consumer surveys, gold was expensive.
Right.
Gold was, oh my God, it's too expensive. Yeah. Will it grow in price? The same question, right? But as a nation, we still have maintained that level of consumption. And that's true, of course, to do with the wealth that's getting created in our country, but also how as a business we're getting more transparent and almost encouraging the younger consumers and other consumers to come and consume more. So yeah, it's a combined effort.
There was a question that came to mind, earlier in this conversation, you were mentioning that 6% of our use is right now coming on the industrial side for chip manufacturing, for AI growth. And up till now, gold has not been observed that much as a material, like you said, beyond maybe some dental use. But that I would assume was a very small percentage, and primarily gold demand was more tied to just the demand and supply of it being treated as a substitute for money. But now, when you start thinking about industrial use, that changes the equation in which gold is looked at. And some of those sentiments come out even in silver, where people expect that silver prices will keep going up because there's an industrial use. And then there comes that fear that, oh, China has come up with a new technology to replace silver. Are the prices going to crash? How do you kind of envision that for gold? At some point, do you feel that a lot of more not liquidity, but I mean a lot more variability in gold prices can come because now industrial players also play an important role in generating demand?
See, the thing is that even the industrial play, if you think about it logically with the pricing of gold, you can only endeavor in gold if you're really playing at the very top end.
Yeah.
That's one part. Secondly, if you're innovating, you try to experiment with gold. And eventually, to scale things up, you have to look at alternatives of gold because of the sheer price. Gold is a great conductor.
Yeah.
So, certain usages of industrial where there is no compromise or you cannot have a compromise, you use gold. So, for example, and I'll encourage you, it's a very cool documentary that we have online which tells you about these usages. And a lot of these satellites that go up have a lot of gold, right? A lot of those transmission sets in these satellites which are roaming somewhere, I don't know how many miles away from Delhi, they're up there, have gold. Why? Because we cannot not have dependency on them.
Right.
So I think dependency is the one factor.
Yeah.
I think dependency and scale are two different conversations. So perhaps what I hear about silver is that when things are scaling, you use silver. Gold is still a very dependable, but a very niche, and hence a very, I think the consumption might not get too sort of wide.
Got
Now,
it.
I'll give you one example of audio systems. There are certain brands, I mean, go back 50 years, the best sound conduction happens in wires of gold.
Right.
In some of the most expensive homes today, they still use that. I mean, can you imagine that in your home? and Nandi, you've just done a home. Maybe you should set up a nice audio system with some wires of gold, and we can all come here and listen to some great music.
This podcast is, and then
Well,
we make a call.
so, but the fact is that certain very high-end brands still use gold as a conduction inside the speakers.
Right.
But of course, the cost is that high, and hence the pricing is that high, and hence very niche. So I think, from my perspective, I don't think there could be a time very soon that you could say that gold will the industrial usage of gold dominate.
Yeah.
Of course, it's increasing, and it's going to be tested a lot on gold. But I think commercialization of anything big might happen without gold.
Got it.
But it's an important segment. We have to keep a mind on it.
Yeah.
So I think it's going to be a lot of world. But to your core question, Nandini, I don't think that this usage can overpass the strategic investment demand usage of gold or the jewelry consumption of gold. I mean, this will be there, but I think it's going to get started.
Yeah.
But then for scale, you will still have to perhaps depend on other metals,
Right.
is what I think.
Because when you're that exposed to the industry, it's only a matter of the next new innovation before the demand could crash. So that creates a little bit of a fear that if a big chunk of your demand is coming from industry, what if some innovation makes that, demand?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fair question.
Yeah.
I only think that because of what gold is priced at and what gold is worth, there will be, like, for example, if there's innovation happening on whether gold can be used to solve a problem, there'll be even faster usages or work happening to what is the next substitute if you are to scale it up.
So just by the virtue of its price, it's a little protected in that space.
Price, supply, availability from that sense, and I think the preciousness of it and stuff. So
Right.
a lot of times the usage of this is in places where you want it to be a little more secure, which perhaps cannot happen in gold.
So, Sachin ji, आप हमें एक example के साथ समझा सकते हैं? Let's look at the last 12 months, and we have seen two big movements there. One has been the rally in gold, which we saw most of 2025, and the other has been something more recent, end of Jan, when we saw a correction in the market. Or we would like to understand from you what that really was, but we saw a price decrease that happened for gold and for other commodities as well. We just recently discussed various factors and variables that are at play that decide the global gold pricing. What really happened in these two movements? there is a lot of conversation that people were expecting the gold prices to increase, but what shocked them the most was the speed at which it went up in 2025. So just separating them both and understanding what really happened there would be very helpful.
Great, very happy to Nandini. And I think let's understand structurally what's happening in the world. I think उससे I think आप लोगों को समझ में आएगा कि हो रहा है, कि हो क्या रहा है. And the whole thing is to understand is last 2 years what's going on. So and I keep hearing about geopolitics, and I keep hearing about because Ukraine and Russia are fighting, or there's tension in the China and Taiwan, or there's issues in Middle East, and that's the reason. And I get into conversations where people say, "Kal agar ek aur attack kahin ho jayega, to gold price up ho jayega," which actually is not the case. And I think it's important for everybody to understand that. If you understand pure simple economics, the current global debt is crossed $37 trillion. Right. There's a firm reality that the Western markets, and particularly the United States, the debt is increasing, and they are printing currency left, right, and center. And because of that, the confidence on the US dollar, treasury, bonds, the currency itself is on a decline. And all of this has resulted in what are the other options by which people can put their sort of confidence on. And gold has been that strong pillar, and not that it's recent, but gold promises liquidity, it's an all-time hedge, it's a safe haven, and all these qualities of gold are playing out right now. And if you look at the global reserve of countries, and global reserve, which earlier almost 77 to 78% was in US dollar-led paper or currency or bonds or treasury or whatever, that's today, just in a matter of 2 years, is down to 52%. And most of that sort of differential is gone into gold. And it's going to go further because of the fundamental of the lack of, or sort of a degrowing confidence on the US dollar because of the debt. And I think if you go in the crux of how they're building or redefining the US economy, if all of the elements that Mr. Trump is trying to do, and I think it's great for that country of what the changes they're attempting to do, it's going to take time. And that angle which is very steep today for the growing debt, for it to even normalize, it's going to take them 6 to 7 years.
Right.
So I think in the mid to long term, you'd realize that this investment, or the whole movement, as I mentioned about central banks, investment areas, and all of that, moving to gold is not a blip in the air.
Right.
It's here to stay and here to strengthen gold. And I think we have a lot of tailwinds as far as gold is concerned from that perspective. Now, when we talk about gold, I mean, as World Gold Council, we don't project any price, right? But we talk about scenarios. And the fact is that what really happened in the last year, as you said already, that we knew that there's confidence in gold. We knew it's going to go a certain direction, but the speed is what was worrying everybody.
Right.
And hence, every time I always say, and I'll आपके viewers को मैं बोलना चाहूँगा कि gold को आप लीजिए as a बिल्कुल जिसे कहते हैं कि बहुत लंबे दृष्टिकोण के साथ इसमें लगाइए. It's a long-term view in gold is a right view. Gold is not a play. Gold is not stock markets.
Right.
Gold is not play every day. I should invest today and invest day, buy day after tomorrow. I mean, I have a lot of friends who've been cursing me to say, "You didn't tell me the price is going to go up." I'm like, I don't know whether it's going to go up or not. But I mean, the fact is, it's not a commodity. Rightly so, it's not a commodity to play every day. What is right is you need to look at your portfolio. And our recommendation is between 15 to 20%, depending on where you are, or 10 to 15%, how you see mentally. That investment or that diversification in your portfolio is a right diversification to make your portfolio healthy.
Right.
I mean, last couple of years, we've seen the stock market struggle a little bit, but they will come back. And gold's role is, of course, right now it's grown in value, but if you look at gold's role has been that it's a great sort of insurer, it's a great sort of hedge on your portfolio. And this is the time that, particularly in the last 6 months, I've seen people generally going and seeing their portfolios scientifically.
Right.
पहले क्या होता था कि भाई गोल्ड तो है ही, गोल्ड घर में पड़ा होगा या ज्वेलरी में होगा, whatever. But here, I'm not about jewelry. I'm saying your investment portfolio, 15% has to have gold. So I think those are things that people are seeing. I see sophistication happening in the investor class, and those things are appreciating. Now, the prices went up because, of course, the structural issues, the investment areas, the central banks have been the very important buyers over the last 2 years. And we as World Gold Council, we work very closely with the central banks of the world. We do a lot of surveys, and you must go and study those surveys. They're all online. And gold, actually, if you see what they're talking about is, it's not that they want to buy gold in the next 3 months, 4 months. They're saying we'll continue to buy in the next 5 years, depending on how every country has a different view. And what's changed also is that earlier only the same 20, 30 central banks used to buy. Now the tail lead of central banks is all small countries, and everybody wants to strengthen. You know, by आपको अपने देश की strength और एक you know all of that is coming via what you own. We also see like de-domiciling happening. आपने शायद last year सुना होगा कि RBI has moved a lot of gold that sat in different parts of the world to India. And that is absolutely right thing to do. Because in the current world, if two countries are putting sanctions on each other, then what happens to your asset that's somewhere is a risk, right? And it's great to see that our assets moving here. It's great to see that those investments are moving up. So I think the prices are structurally going up. And what really happened in the month of January, I think it was too much of betting that was going on. And the investment markets got really heated up. And the fact is that any scientific or any long-term play wouldn't have sort of agreed or believed that this is happening. And if you just erase the 2-3 weeks of January, then I think it's at the right levels. We know it's a lot of strength. And I was talking about scenarios. So if you look at 3 scenarios, and they're published at the World Gold Council website. We also give you a model called GRAM. And again, I'll encourage your viewers to please go there. All information is available free, it's transparent, and we get a lot of respect because of our transparency. We call black as black, white as white. And we let you play. So there are models by which you say, geopolitics, you can put a number and it'll help you come with the outcome of what gold could be and stuff like that. So play around, and a lot of sophisticated models around there. But the 3 scenarios that we talk about are that, let's say there's this great love that happens between the leadership of all nations. China becomes best friends with America tomorrow, and Modi ji's, and what I'm saying is pure love happens, which is going to be great, which is going to be a lovely place to be. But that tension disappears, then yes, gold price can perhaps crash by 25%, 30%, who knows, right? But perhaps improbable scenario. Let's look at the other extreme one, where nuclear evasion happens, 5 countries start fighting with one another. It's a possibility, but it's a very rare one, by which perhaps the price of gold should go up another 30-40%, who knows. And the third is that the current state prevails. Sadly, when we had the Russian-Ukraine war, reality is it's been around for almost now 4 or 5 years. And we almost are used to living in a society where wars are happening and we forget and we move on. It's a very sad part, but the geopolitics has a different impact on us these days. And I think the world, this third scenario, perhaps will be the most probable one, where the trade issues or the trade wars and the tariff issues will stay on, right? The geopolitics will stay on. The countries will want to get more strengthened. And I think in this perspective, I think the strength on what gold can do in terms of its pricing, its demand, will be certainly more stronger. Whether that'll increase the price by X percentage, who knows? But certainly what happened in January is purely a function of a very high volatility by betting that was going on, and it's normalized. And it just took a little bit of time to get normalized.
So I feel like you've already answered this question, but just to very explicitly ask this again, there's a lot of conversation that we're in a gold and silver bubble right now. And the current correction is not the end of it. And in future, we can expect further very massive price cuts. So I think just your view on that. I know we've already discussed that gold is a long-term play, and these are mostly just corrections, but still would love to get your opinion, because there's a lot of fear-mongering that's happening in the markets right now. So it would be nice to get some kind of answer from someone who has a lot more exposure to this space.
So I think I don't understand silver as much. I keep watching it from a distance, and the last 1 year in particular, the things that I've heard, the analysis that I've seen, all doesn't catch to the reality. So it's a very different reason why. So I'm not an expert in gold, in silver. But what I again repeat on gold is that gold, in the current context of where we are globally, with what's happening in our lives today, geopolitics, with how nations want to bring strength, I think the tailwinds on gold are super strong. And the reasons are very clear. And I'm not once pointing out to say that it's because A country is fighting with B. It's a structural issue. And I'll encourage people to go and read. It's not opaque. It's not my view. It's a view of economics. It's a view of the world. And there is a reason why a small country says that I'm going to put my certain part of my budget not into defense, but buy gold. And that is perhaps strength. And it's happening because of what's playing out. And hence, I think, again, repeat that long-term view, look at your portfolios. Long-term view, look at gold. And I think even for the jewelry consumers, I mean, there's a lot of times I keep hearing that gold mein lagaye, kidhar lagaye.
Yeah.
You know, wear it. It's some great creativity that happens. It does something inside, you know, and which other form of saving would do that, which will also grow in value.
Yeah.
Right.
But it's also explicit of our culture, explicit of who you are. And
We just
I think we should.
discussed it's good for your health.
Yeah,
Why not?
but actually, then you have to eat up, which I think
I
is
think it gets absorbed also.
yeah, a little bit, yes. But I think it's the fact is that it's a very strong time for gold.
Yeah. And you know, as we kind of think about these tailwinds, I think the central bank commitments towards purchasing gold, that is something that, you know, viewers can keep an eye on and use as one of their more definitive tailwind markers versus just getting, like, I'm just trying to find a way where our audience can understand how to look at the news and make the best assessment from it.
I think my only rider or the rider on that would be that don't react on every news.
Yeah.
Have a play, and gold is not to be reacted on every news.
Yeah.
Look at first your portfolio. If your portfolio is 100, is gold 50% minimum, and then you can play a little bit more or less depending on your appetite of risk. That's number one. And again, gold is not to be responded that, okay, oh, I heard this news, let me respond. See gold from a long-term strategic play into your portfolio, into your life.
Okay, great. So should we move on to the next section?
Sure. So, as you mentioned, as you were answering, the global debt has increased significantly, particularly for US, and it'll take them 6 to 7 years to stabilize that. One question that comes to mind is these things were always, they weren't unknown, right? Like you knew it in 2015, 2017, 2020, and the increase of debt was also known. But why is it that the increase only happened in the last 2 years? Can we expect that as people are more getting more aware of the huge debt issue, and also there are big sort of headwinds towards like dollar debasement, is that already baked into the price, or is it that retail investors and FIIs are slowly catching up along with central banks?
I think it's a great question. So one, I think I'll start from the end of it and I'll go back. So I think everything is baked in the price. Today the gold market is too wide to sort of have any games getting played. So it's a very transparent market. I think even as World Gold Council, we're trying to get a lot of banks, digitization, transparency in the system. We're working in the whole tokenization business, which is based on transparency. Like I can tell you that we started pushing, the conversation on blockchain technologies. We work with some of the finest blockchain technologies in the world, and today, almost all of our member companies who are the biggest miners of the world, every ounce of gold that comes out is on the blockchain.
Oh, lovely.
Via LBMA now, almost I think the 99% or 90% of their refiners, everything is on blockchain. So I think the level of transparencies are wide and bigger. Now, to your point, how that means, what it translates and everything, I think it's purely a function of transparency from that angle. So to your point, why it's really picked up in the last couple of years alone,
Right.
and I think it really got started with central banks recognizing it first. And central banks,
which they didn't prior to that.
yeah, which were the levels of buying the central banks did to what they buy today is a very different conversation.
Got it.
And so that triggered into 2024, and the financial markets, largely led by the ETFs in the Western markets, they followed in 2025. The main driver was the investment psychology, and you know what happened was also why I talked about the blockchain was and other elements of transparency. See, as an asset class, gold was known to be opaque, a little dark. Nobody knew what's going on. It's not fungible.
Absolutely.
It's not accessible at times. It doesn't operate in the same market hours. And a lot of people who I know who've been the leading wealth managers stayed away from gold, not because that they didn't like gold, but they didn't know how to deal in this thing. And that's changing. That world of gold is changing. And I also foresee a time that in the next, maybe a very short span of time, maybe 2 or 3 years, gold will be a technology. Gold will be the foremost sort of asset class that is comparable to any other asset class in the world. So that there will be 3 promises that will happen by this technology. First is that gold will be accessible. And be accessible 24/7. It's not going to be in certain hours, not hours. Can I access it only in a physical format? So it'll be accessible 24/7. Secondly, it'll be fungible.
Right.
Which means that I can give it to you. One country can move to B country and all of that, and it will not be important where it physically sits. So I think that fungibility is a very big game changer that's coming in. And third, and the most important is, which already is happening as we talk and has been the reason of this increase, is authentic. So when we say that this gold is X carat, X weight, and whatever, it is what we're saying it is.
Right.
Which earlier was a big gray area that transparency is impacting. And I think lastly, importantly, also is the momentum. Most of the investor or typical retail investors, and for sure a simple investor of India, and I see it in my family, I see it in my friends, I see it in all us consumer surveys, people, and we have some huge jargons that we talk in the financial world around diversification, around mobilization, asset funding. There are 200 of them. But an investor, simple person who says, "Bhai, jahan paisa bhar raha hai, wahan paisa laga do."
Right.
Right. So hence that adds on to a momentum. There's a sense of saying, "Yeah, I got missed out," and I'm sure you would have heard so many. You in the jewelry space, and you would have friends who will say, "Boss, I should have invested when it was 100, now it's bloody 400," and all of those things. We keep
Right.
hearing it. So when something goes up like this, there's a lot that gets added up by the momentum, both upward and downward.
Right.
So even when you talked about the decline or the correction or the whole volatility that is happening, it acts both ways. People start selling, people start buying when it's momentum created. And that's what's happening. Is it right? Perhaps not. And again, I repeat that for gold, look at long term. It's not a short term play.
Absolutely. One thing that has been unique to the last couple of years is the economic relation between gold and equity markets. Historically, economists have also always said that when the global economy, equity markets, say the US markets, are going down, investors move to gold because it's a safe haven. But in the last couple of years, we've seen both rally together. How do you see this? Do you see this as an actual structural shift of gold in global portfolios, or is it just because of the influx of liquidity and the AI boom coming together?
I think what's really changing is the role of gold changing in the world. And if you look at study 2024, when the markets were doing very well and gold did exceptionally well, was primarily led by the central banks buying.
Right.
And when central banks buy, they're almost price agnostic.
Right, because
वो
they don't have
अपनी
to
बाइंग
sell.
इस तरह से नहीं करते कि आज गोल्ड का दाम कम है तो खरीद लेते हैं. तो उनका है कि भाई इतना गोल्ड हमारे को ओन करना पड़ा so that country perhaps needs it, and there's a roadmap created, and you're almost price agnostic to that point of buying. And that again takes away from the science of the relationship of stock markets and this thing, because it's the new consumer that's buying it. If you look at the technological buy, for example, if you're creating something and you need 7% of the gold's world is getting used, is purely reflection that you will use it. If you're creating an innovation or you're trying to build something up, you'll use it. So there are also emerging price agnostic consumptions that are happening. Jewelry, the third one, right? Now, if you look at the global world of jewelry, India has become the largest market of jewelry in the world. Right? Not because we did something exceptional, but China dropped.
Right.
So we were where we were, but China went much down. So we've become the bigger. Now, what's happening in that world also, and I think there's a lot of work that we all have to do, China is doing very well on that area, is that jewelers over here have to create a relationship with the new consumer of today. First January 2026, 77% of India was millennial or younger, right? And I still meet jewelers who say, "Bhai, millennial का हमारे से क्या मतलब? हम तो भाई जो हमारा consumer है वो है." The fact is, 77% of our desh, or हमारे देश का जो the whole matrix is a young consumer, and we gotta be ready to have solutions for them so that they can have a relationship with your product.
Right.
And I think we're not doing great stuff as an industry. I mean, some people are, but we got to do even more so that this young consumer comes back and consumes gold in the way they live their life. The way they aspire to own gold has to go through a whole evolution.
Right.
Today is good. I mean, 2025 was fantastic. Every jeweler has done really well. We all are great, and we've done best top lines, best bottom lines. But it's the time now to make those changes so that tomorrow can be good too. So jewelry, from that sense, has been a sort of slightly not the brightest spot from a perspective that consumers are evolving. I'm not worried about the volume, and I know you will. I keep talking a lot about the volumes have dropped and stuff, which is not important, because if a consumer of jewelry had 100 rupees he's come and spent 120 this year.
Right.
Right. And it does not matter whether that volume has gone down, because it's all about how consumers' interest is on gold jewelry. And if we give some time that the price stabilizes, they'll all come back. So I'm not worried at all about that. So I think when you look at the crux of last year, and your point was that what's really going on and which sectors and stuff. So I think every sector has done reasonably well from a perspective of consumption. And A or B or B or A, I won't worry about that.
Do you think it's just the allocation between different industries that's changing? Like for millennials, Gen Z, they might not be going for traditional jewelry in gold, but they might be the larger buyers for ETFs, for digital gold. So they are still consumers of gold, but the way that they're consuming it has changed.
Oh yeah, I mean, if you look at, there's always a conversation of the 5 Ds of India,
Yeah.
and I'll quickly talk about them. We talk about India's democracy, which is great. We talk about India's diaspora.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people who live abroad. We talk about the diversity, and that is the biggest promise for Indian jewelers,
Yeah.
because every 500 kilometers we change and all of that. And also it's about the digitized India
Yeah.
and digitization of India. And the fact is that younger consumers, and not just in tier A markets or metropolitans, but tier 5, tier 6 cities, the extent of their consumption of knowledge is via digitization,
Right.
and the consumption will happen. So ETF, for example, as you mentioned, is one of the great examples by which consumers will invest.
Yeah.
But I think if you do a deeper research, it's not that consumers are moving from jewelry to this. They're now using gold as an asset class. So within the investment space, gold's space is increasing.
Yeah.
I don't completely believe, of course, last year with pricing of gold going crazy, everybody wanted to acquire more gold. But I don't think consumers have moved from jewelry to here.
Okay.
It was a very exceptional time with the price rally, pricings going up. Like we had 85 all-time highs just in 2025. 85 all-time historic highs. And what do? If I have 100 rupees, I will hold on. I will say, boss, ye thoda kamane ko phir lete hain. Natural, yeah, it's natural.
Right.
So we've not given that space. But the other promises, and that's very important for everybody in the industry, particularly jewelry industry, to understand, is that our per capita income of India is about $2,900. Let's say average out $3,000, which every Indian gets in their hands as disposable wealth.
Yeah.
This is envisaged to be $15,000 by 2047. And what it does is that there's such a huge, if you look at the income pyramid, there's a large segment of consumers who still have not touched gold yet, will come in this circuit to buy gold. So I think there's a bigger promise. We're not China. We're not a matured economy.
Right.
We're still growing, and we are one of the only ones growing in a strong manner. So there's a lot of promise of what will unearth in the coming time.
So let's move on to our next segment. Great. So let's move on to our next segment. We call it Market Myths. As we all know, our social media is flooded with a lot of information and a lot of misinformation, especially about speculation and prices. So which ones of these do you think are rightly wrong, and which ones are half true? So
Actually, before that, I will say that my answers might be somewhere in the middle. It won't be as exciting at times, but I'll try to make my best attempt to give authentic information.
that's absolutely fine. Whatever you feel that it will be closer to the truth.
Sure. No, I'll give truth, which
Can
might not be
truth
as
as a
exciting.
spectrum.
Yeah.
Okay, the first myth or not, gold prices only increase during crises.
Myth. Absolutely not. It's a very strategic play on gold. It's not, everybody's not looking at news today and jumping on price of gold. Things have been sensitive past, particularly in 2024 when some geopolitics was playing out. But I think it's a myth. Most of the key people and the key drivers of gold are long term.
Perfect. Myth or not, gold is a dead asset because it doesn't generate interest.
Gold, absolutely a myth. Gold is not a dead asset. Gold is perhaps right now in the current world is one of the most strategic assets that people are owning, investing, getting strength out of. And I did mention to you that the way the gold moved last year, and almost 18,70,000 crores worth of gold getting traded on a daily basis only reflects that this is the most liquid asset. It plays out on every element of gold, which is it's a safe haven, it's a great hedge, it's a great diversifier, and it's certainly far away from anything called a dead asset.
100%. In January 2026, gold saw more net inflow in gold ETFs versus mutual funds in India. So
Yeah, and I'm going to talk more about that. But the fact is that, again, when you look at dead assets, they don't impact anybody.
right.
In this country, 55 lakh people take their earning or their livelihood is dependent on gold.
Oh wow.
And the fact is that 50 lakh individuals. So how many people as families would be dependent on gold? So it's a very large industry, and it does much more than being a dead asset.
100%. Myth or not, real gold can be replaced with lab-grown gold.
Well, lab-grown gold is a very far-fetched fancy today. Can things change in the future? Who knows what will happen? But certainly a myth for today. There's a lot of research happening in the world, but they're not able to stabilize that element. It's very expensive to do it. So today, myth for sure, but who knows the possibilities of the future?
A far, far, far future.
100%.
Not in our lifetime.
Absolutely.
Perfect. Myth or not, Bitcoin is digital gold.
Absolutely a myth. Bitcoin has no relationship, and perhaps stating or saying that it's digital gold. It's not. Bitcoin is meant for an investor who wants to play at a very high level of risk, no tangibility and stuff. And what a Bitcoin offers to what gold offers are perhaps completely different. Gold is tangible. It gives that strength. It's not vanishing away. It's pretty tangible, and from that sense, and I think that they're completely different asset classes.
Myth or not, AI can predict the gold movement accurately.
I wish AI could. I think it's a myth, because what's happening in the world, and perhaps a myth today, but I know that there'll be very, very more sophisticated modeling of AI that's coming up, and perhaps it does. Today it doesn't.
So our viewers should not rely on ChatGPT for gold buying decisions.
Well, I think ChatGPT is a great indication for a whole lot of things, but certainly if you start taking decisions on ChatGPT, I think relationships will be perhaps in a big mess, and so will be a whole lot of other things. So I think, as I said, AI is getting more and more sophisticated, and we'll see what happens in the future. But today, you have to open your eyes. You have to do your own assessment of what risk means to you, because what risk means to you or to me could be completely different plethoras. What means to A, consumption, B is very different. So you have to take your own call based on all the realities that are available.
Great. Myth or not, gold and silver prices move together.
Myth again, and gold. I mean, I understand gold better, but gold is very strategic and has reasons why it moves in a certain way. Silver connected, was perhaps a little historical conversation, and certainly has some relationships, but they don't move tandem in hand in hand.
Okay, great. Next one. Myth or not, buying gold gives you US dollar exposure.
I don't think so, that it gives you US dollar exposure, because in the world of India, I mean, when you look at Indians owning gold, and if you look at Chinese owning gold, they're not looking at their holding, US dollar. What they're using is that they have something which is strong, that's tradable, that's liquid, that's a hedge and stuff. US dollar itself is going through its own issues. And the more institutional investors, central banks are looking at perhaps that conversion in a very converse manner.
Just to follow up on that, so when, let's say, rupee weakens, is it not true that the gold pricing or the gold that you're holding becomes more expensive?
In India.
In India. So as a
Actually,
result,
any market,
the calculation.
Well, it does, but that's not necessarily because of that weakening, but that's also the price of gold today. So today we do we import gold and we get it like that. So yes, it does, but I don't think it's a reflection of a US dollar weakening directly.
Okay.
And certainly I don't think that when you own gold, you say it's my exposure in US dollar.
Got it.
You're owning gold for strategic reasons, that you're owning gold, that your exposure has nothing to do with US dollar in many, many senses.
Okay, great. So our last one, myth or not, gold biscuits are better than gold ETF.
Well, I think it's a personal choice. I can give you some indications of what's happening in India. So in India, largely of the 700 to 800 tons that we consume, about 70% gets used in jewelry and about 30% goes in investment demand. Within that investment demand, the large pie is physical bars and coins that we consume, right? ETF is a phenomenal product. It's regulated under SEBI. And I don't think it's gained momentum because of its, because of unawareness. So people don't really know how it works, and not many people know that it's backed. Every unit of ETF is backed by physical gold, which is not too many people are aware of it. And as I think my belief is that as India gets more younger, gets more digital, and people are very happy to own all their assets in a phone,
Yeah.
I think ETF will grow further. I'll give you some numbers. 1st Jan 2024, the AUM of gold-backed ETFs in India was about 40 tons. 1st Jan 2025, this was 57 tons. So you could just 17 tons is perhaps insignificant, but 17 tons over 40 tons was big.
Yeah.
We did a lot of push in the World Gold Council scenario, and we did campaigns and stuff. And our target was to get to 100 tons by 31st December. We took 5 more days. We didn't do it on the 31st of December 2025, but on the 31st of December 2025, the AUM of gold was 98 tons, and it crossed 100 tons on the 4th of Jan. So the fact is, again, you could say that 43 tons is not a big thing in the scheme of things, but 43 tons on 57 tons base
Right.
is
Yeah.
fundamentally a huge growth. And there are 2 more segments that are opening up now, which I think will almost consume more and more ETF. And we've been working a lot with the Provident Fund regulator, where Provident Fund today, there's huge assets that they own, but they're not allowed by law to invest on commodities and metal, which they've opened now. They've defined a percentage, and that's going to open up another consumption area for ETFs because they will consume through a regulated product like ETF. And the other conversation we're having is with the insurance regulator.
Okay.
And the huge AUMs today that the insurance companies have, they're allowed to invest in stock markets, but they're not allowed to invest in gold, which we're almost there. If that opens up, will also open up a very big consumption for ETFs. So my faith on ETFs is strong because of India, the younger India, the digitized India for sure. And I think also these institutional investors, which will look at gold as an asset class.
So gold ETF has a huge role to play, we would say, in the next 5 to 10 years.
Yeah, in the future, it's going to grow. It's
Yeah.
going to grow. And I don't think it's going to be at the cost of physical gold.
Okay.
Right.
The physical gold has its own nuance.
Yeah.
The rural India, if you look at it, about 40% of the consumption still comes from rural India.
Oh, wow.
Right? Not physically, but
Yeah.
maybe from feeder markets and otherwise. But physical gold is going to play a very, very important role. And also what I mentioned before, that as the wealth of Indians are going up, we're not a saturated market that we have to worry.
Right.
Every segment has a potential to grow.
Great. So I think that was all we had for our Myth or Bust. But if there's anything that you have heard that you want the people to know is not actually true, or things that you've seen on your social media which you wish you had the opportunity to tell people, that's probably not the
One thing
best way.
that I always get fascinated about is that how much gold exists, right?
Yeah.
Right.
And I mean, the number is that we think that about 225,000 tons of gold is above earth, and about 50,000 tons is underground still.
Yeah.
Right? But of course, there's new technology and all of that. But I'd like your viewers to visualize it. If anybody's a swimmer, think about a 25-meter pool, right? So 2 meters more, 27 meter by 27 meter by 27 meter. If you think about a cube,
Yeah.
is
Right.
all the gold in the world.
Oh, wow.
Right, so that's it.
That's-
So
yeah.
it could be sitting in. We're in South Delhi,
Yeah.
and most of the pools around are that size
Yeah.
of water, and that's the gold in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
So it's a very unique commodity
Yeah.
or an asset that is spread out across the world, but is still so small.
Yeah.
Right, physically still small.
Is that
And-
all the mined gold or all the gold that we have assessed to be on planet Earth?
No, so I'm talking about, as I said, we believe that about 225,000 tons is above Earth.
Above Earth, got it.
And about 40,000-50,000 that deposits and other things that still are there, which can be, which is our assessment. So this is what's been above Earth. Perhaps a 27 by 27 might become a little more.
Happening, sure.
Yeah, we'll see. So that's interesting
That's
way to
very
see and
interesting,
visualize
yeah.
gold.
Right.
That while it's too much of gold, but it's
Yeah.
not that much of
Very
physical
finite,
gold.
eventually. Yeah. So with the data and insights generated by the World Gold Council, what was the most interesting trend you observed in 2025 that even surprised you?
A lot of things are moving pieces. I mean, what I'm not surprised, and people think that we should
Yeah.
be really bogged down, is the jewelry demand,
Yeah.
which from a volume point of view has gone down, right? And to a very substantial percentage. I mean, 24% of the volume of jewelry consumption has been down, but from a value perspective, that's 15 to 18% up.
Yeah.
So that seems obvious that you should be surprised, and I'm not, because I think what it's given is that consumers are obsessed with gold, and even in such volatile or dynamic pricing of gold, every family has come in and spent a little more,
Yeah.
and that's one. I think what's something that's pleasantly, I'm surprised,
Yeah.
pleasantly, is a bit of modernization, contemporization already that I see in the jewelry space, that the industry is doing a better job on coming closer to the consumer. And I'll give an example. Um, I've been very closely watching the Times of India on Dhanteras. Okay. Times of India on Dhanteras, typically a 30-page Times of India. That day, 75 pages. Everybody is advertising about gold. But the way you're talking about gold is perhaps not the most sophisticated way gold should be represented. And I've seen a bit of trend, which I think will amplify this year, is around premiumization. I think the world is getting more premium, and I foresee and more the consumers we studied, and we studied consumers at the top end of India who were earlier reflecting their lifestyle or who they were projected only through diamonds or sapphires or brands. And I see a lot of gold coming in there, those conversations. Today, a rich Indian is happy to express their worth by gold, which is a new trend. And it's ironic because you were done with that. You thought gold is a commodity. Who wears gold? Is coming back. And I foresee 2025 started, and that's pleasantly surprised me. And I'm a firm belief that 26, 27, 28 will be areas where gold will be a premium product. There'll be a lot of attempts of gold in terms of fine ways of representing it, great jewelry, brands will emerge, and you will be very comfortable to express who you are via gold. And it's happened in different markets. I mean, there's a brand in China called Lapao that we work very closely with. They've positioned 24 karat gold at the level of Hermes. And the youngsters are buying it like how? And I know a lot of attempts are getting made. Second half of the year, you see them active. A lot of the designer community, the top designers who are the masters, have been discussing with us around how they can focus back in gold. And so I think that premiumization was a pleasant observation, but I think will be a very important trend. Very others also have been that one of the things that is that I think we all should be very happy about is the context of what gold has with the regulators and the government. And it's very I think productive. It's proactive. They're looking at gold as an important asset of the nation, and that's to do with how our nation is progressing. Very many years back, gold was an issue from a CAD point of view. I think it's moved from there, and they're very proactive, good conversations that are happening on that front.
Yeah, it's so good to hear the positive side of things. So this was like this was really good to learn about this.
Great.
Okay, so I think something you touched on earlier, now we're just moving more towards the future outlook of gold. So something we spoke about earlier in our segment is that the increase in the gold prices have opened up the market for some new products and some new industries. What are some of the big ones that are coming to you, and where do you see, what would be the next few big players in the gold space, whether it's at the industry side or on the product side?
Well, actually, again, if you look at sectorally, the rules of gold is very different, and pricing of gold is a completely different plethora. I think the most sensitive one tends to be jewelry, because a jewelry consumer has a budget. I mean, a family has a budget. You have a certain budget when you come or think about getting your daughter married. Right. So I think those are finite things that happen. As I've already said, that I see more sophistication in that. We just finished a survey where we were trying to understand the bridal sort of investment on gold. And interestingly, if the budget is 100, about 30 to 35% used to get invested in jewelry. And out of that, a certain percentage was gold, then it was other things. What we see now, and I'm talking about just metropolitans, is that 30 has become 40 to 45 because what's happening in gold. And there's also always a feeling that while it's wedding, let's buy or invest in something that stays on for the young couple. That's gone up, and the share of gold over there is now crossed 80%. So consumers looking to buy for wedding, which is a very large segment, is increasing. So that's a very important change. And I think that while at some point we felt that those large pieces of gold that existed might not be even relevant for the new age consumer, I think there'll be more sophistication coming out of it. And young people will express intently who they are via gold. I think that's one change. I see a very sophisticated audio systems that are looking at usage of gold. For me, one of the projects that we're working on, and maybe I should say about it, but I'll take the platform on. When I walk on the street of New York or the airport, or and when I look at consumers like you, right, there is a new accessory that's emerging, and when I tell you what that accessory is, you'll say yes, perhaps. So all of you guys are wearing these white plastic
AirPods,
which exist, and that's a new way of life. And I think it's a new accessory of sorts.
Right.
And as World Gold Council, we of course initiating certain things on design and stuff. But I think the bigger project for us is how we can bring gold in that consumption. And we're working with some of the most important players in the world now that we're opening up those things and understanding what gold would mean there.
Yeah.
And actually, when we studied that, one of the big segments, big I say is about 10%, the big segment is consumers saying we use an airport to sleep better
Oh wow.
for silence. Now, so I think it's going to be an important accessory. Our role will be how we get gold there,
Yeah.
right? And that's an interesting task, and I think very exciting task for us.
All
We
the
should
more
see
for the radiation if you're sleeping
and
with
radiation,
it. Might as
and
well
radiation,
have some gold in
and
it.
of course the benefits of gold that we talked about. But I think also as an accessory, I think as an industry we would be a little more proactive that we don't give it away to plastic.
Right.
You know, there's more, and recently I did a study on the very high-end AirPods. So a typical Apple one could be $25,000,
Right.
the best one. But the high-end ones of brands like Bang & Olufsen and the others are $5,000.
Yeah.
And they're growing hugely. So there is something there that you would like to express who you are
Right.
via gadgets,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's a role of gold to play there.
Yeah.
So some exciting projects coming our way.
That's very exciting.
Can't believe 10% of people use them to sleep. I don't even run in them.
It's shocking, and particularly airports. When we studied that, it's amazing that people are just saying just plug them up, cut the sound out, and sleep,
Oh,
which is
The amount
crazy.
of news that's out there. I'm even anxious wearing them for like an hour a day. That what's happening to my brain? Is it?
I totally agree. It's
So,
radiation all the way, and who
yeah.
knows what's going on? Yeah.
We're excited to try out the World Gold Council's new gold AirPods.
Not ours. We, as I said, the role of World Gold Council is to be an enabler and to be the catalyst. We'll initiate things. They're not ours, but I think we'll help shape long-term trends. And
Absolutely.
this certainly will be one of them.
So our Prime Minister Modi has set out a target for us. By 2047, we want to become a developed country. Viksit Bharat 2047 is a goal on every industry's mind. I would love to hear from you how you are thinking about, as the regional CEO of World Gold Council, how gold can play a good role in it in terms of being an asset class as well as in jewelry and other industries.
No, great. Thanks for the question. I think very few countries have leadership like that, which have a vision of changing the status quo and making dramatic changes on a nation like ours. And what's happening in our country is, and I'm not talking political. I'm just basically saying that over the last 10, 12 years, we've seen a strong, stable hand behind the driving steering.
Right.
And we as a country are moving in a very fast right direction. And you mentioned about the destination that our respectable Prime Minister has laid on in front of every Indian. You're saying we can move from being a developing nation, that has been our status for very long, to really being a developed economy. By 2027, we'll be the third largest economy of the world anyways,
Oh, wow.
right? So that's happening, that's coming our way. But that destination is very ambitious. And from a current status of $4.8 trillion to touching a $30 trillion economy, we basically are saying that in the next 21 years or 22 years, there'll be 4 to 5 new Indias that will get added up,
Yeah.
right? And that's the ambition. So I think it's massive. It's not going to happen by just talking. There's loads of work happening around that. And while as a team, we were hearing any public platform you went to, you heard about Viksit Bharat at least 5 times that's happening. And we all keep hearing about it. We went back to the sketchboard to saying, what's the role of the gold industry in this destination or this travel to Viksit Bharat? And we met Niti Aayog, we went to the different ministries, and there was not a clear articulation of what the gold industry is required to do. So we were advised and we went on a mission on a project that we call Swarnim Udan 2047. And why Swarnim Udan? Because it means a golden flight.
Oh,
So it's not a gold flight, it's a golden flight and it's future directional. And there's some great work that's happened over the last year around this project. I feel supremely proud about what came out of it. And how we approached it was we got a bunch of futurists who advised us where's the world going.
Yeah.
Not to do with the gold industry, but where's the world headed? Because I think you need to draw some trends from that. Then we worked with all the ministries of different areas of ministries who work or impact the gold business and very deeply with the industry. And we are almost at the verge of finalizing that report. It's really coming out. And what we intend is that report will give a very directional roadmap of the role of gold industry and almost a milestone-based approach of Let's say what will happen by 2040, what should happen by 2035, 2030, and today. And most importantly, it has specifically laid down the task forces that need to be started up for
Right.
this to be a reality.
Yeah.
And I'll give you 4 or 5 things, so just indications of what's coming out of the report. Firstly, I did mention to you that if the right triggers are pressed, we believe that a lot of gold that we consume could come from our own gold. So there's
Oh,
a
wow.
great opportunity in mining. Related to that is that the largest mine in the world for gold is the gold sitting in our households,
Yeah.
right? We've done a great amount of study in that, and we now working with the Ministry of Finance that they could get kickstarted as to how that gold can come out. There've been attempts in the past, but the one that we've suggested has a lot in technology and privatization.
Right.
So government's role again could be a catalyst role, but let the private sector play a role there, and I think there's a potential to bring the gold out, and that is of course connected benefits of what that could do to our nation. Secondly, related to the question of LBMA, the fact is that while India is such a large consumer of gold, we have almost negligible impact on what the price is. So we are a price taker, but not a price maker.
Right.
And to get into this price maker position, there's a lot of changes that we have to do in the banking sector and others. And we've presented that to RBI, and there's a lot of thinking happening that we open up that conversation. What are the rules, and how can India be an important how India can have an important position in the world of gold? That's the other one. Thirdly, we think that India will be the jeweler to the world.
Yeah.
Today, we acquired that position in diamonds, but we don't have that position in gold. And with the current trade wars and the different things happening, I think we have a phenomenal golden opportunity to get to that point. And as an outcome of those researches, we've come out with a project, which is what we've embarked already on. We are going to be establishing the first global gold innovation center in India.
Oh,
And that's hopefully will be establishing along with the Ministry of Maharashtra. Outside of Navi Mumbai, there's the first innovation city that's coming in, and I think that'll be a very important attempt. And please understand, it's not an innovation for jewelry; it's an innovation for the entire value chain of gold.
Right.
That's going to come out. So I think that's an important step forward, which it'll be first of its kind, not in the western part of the world or the eastern part of the world, but in India.
Yeah.
And I feel very proud about that.
Yeah.
Then we also think that there's a role to play for artisans to be stepped up, and we all have to come out of this whole notion that artisans who have a struggling life is okay. It's not okay. We all have to be good about that. And related to that, we're also starting off something as gold tourism. And we keep getting accused of the fact that there's a lot of gold under our temples and all of that. And we're creating a blueprint where we are presenting to all the temple trusts that they can create a museum of gold outside the temple. And think about it. Religious tourism is a very big thing in India.
Yeah.
And if our gold is represented there in a manner which is like a museum displayed, exchange, medallions and all those things. So I think that's another ecosystem that we're trying to help. So like this, that's just indications, but there are very many such attempts that I think gold will not just be not a sleepy asset,
Yeah.
but gold will be a very important pillar of this growth that we're doing, or this journey of making India strong and how we can do it. So we're very excited about it.
Yeah.
And the reception or the receptivity that we got from every stakeholder is spot on. People want to be a part of it. And the key next step would be, once we launch it, we bring the industry together, and activated task forces are created so people get on their direction and do the job.
Absolutely.
So
I mean, the
that's the
museum
intent.
sounds great. I would be so excited to, get a chance to look at something like this, because a lot of it is not just good, but it's also your history. A lot of that has not seen public eye in maybe centuries.
Oh, yeah.
So it would be so interesting to see what artistry looked like back then.
100%.
What was being depicted through the jewelry, through the artifacts. So it's
No, it's
gonna
very
be
cool,
very-
and
yeah.
it's very cool, and I think we can say that our history and our culture sits in books of history,
Yeah.
but it needs to be out there.
agreed.
Yes.
And since we did in Delhi, I mean, ironically,
Yeah.
the museums in this city are just amazing.
Yeah.
Yes.
But how many of us really go them is a
Yeah.
big question.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you've seen the art museum,
The modern art.
The modern art gallery,
At
right?
India Gate, yeah.
And it's spectacular.
Yeah.
I mean, the kind of art that's sitting there is spectacular. The only problem over there is that while the infrastructure is great and it's fully air conditioned and they have great shows, that entry costed 20 rupees. And that damn thing if this was 5,000 rupees, half of Delhi would be there. So I think to your point, museums is a good way
Yeah.
of bringing what we own out there.
Right. I mean, the art fair that happened in Delhi recently, it had a huge turnaround. So,
Yeah. It's getting more and more
Turnout.
popular, yeah.
As you mentioned, gold will play. Gold's role will be one of the strong. Sorry. As you mentioned, gold will be one of the strong pillars in Viksit Bharat 2040. Just to give users some perspective, World Gold Council estimates that Indian households hold 25,000 tons of gold. And if we can just, as you mentioned, privatize and monetize and bring it out, that would be at current rate, it is, I believe, around $4 trillion at the 5,000 gold ton rate. And it's almost as big as our GDP. So as we're going to move towards privatization and monetization, we can definitely help. We can easily, like, this is something that's already in our hands and just needs to come out. And the one just follow-up question to that would be, in terms of privatization, monetizations for our users, are there any particular products or any particular startup ideas or any particular industry areas where you feel that it's a good time to build?
Well, I think as this opens up, first is the policy and the openness in the policy, and I think the government of India under the Ministry of Finance, they are very proactive on thinking what can be done. And we did a deeper analysis of this holding, and 25,000 ton is a mathematical put together. Some people say it's 40, some people say 35, so it's almost a little hazy number.
Right.
But what it did is that it brings strength to a nation. It brings strength to a household, right? In a rainy day, you know something that you can bank on.
Yeah.
And we saw in the time of COVID, different countries got impacted in different manner. Yeah. India didn't,
Right.
because we held gold. So it's an important play, and I think right from the government to everybody else understands that. So that's one part. But I think once the policy is set up, there will be enough and more opportunities for startups and creative minds to bring and technology to the base, right? I think one of the reasons I believe, and that came out in our research, why the GMS did not work so well was it was pretty tedious, and it required a consumer to go from A to B to C, and then to refiner. And I think technology today can solve it.
Right.
So I think we have to get in that mind space, and I think there'll be lots and more opportunity from that area. And of that breakup of that 25,000 or 35,000, whatever comes out, I think interesting part is that about 30% of that is in the form of bar and coins.
Right.
So at times you say, I be happy to, sort of give away my mom's jewelry that held some meaning, or my great grandmom's thing. Yes or no? Perhaps yes, perhaps no. But I think the bars and coin relationship is a financial relationship. And to put a financial relationship in liquidity, which gives you some return, could be much more easier one. So the first attempt that we put forth is saying, just offer it purely on bars and coins. I mean, don't get the emotional angle that, मेरी mother की jewelry or मेरी दादी माँ की याद, मतलब don't touch it. आप सिर्फ financial रखिए relationship, and lot can come out. So I think once it opens up, and there are different countries where it does. I mean, for example, in the Turkey market, this whole monetization is very advanced levels. You have ATMs where you go, deposit gold, come it out. You have different things that are happening. And I think once the policy framework is kind of set, then I think there'll be a very active ways where new products could come out. The role of jewelers will expand. And I think youngsters like you will drive that conversation, because, as I said, 77% of India will be people like you. So, and important element, one last thing I'll say is that there'll be a lot of gold that'll pass off hands to you guys. As in, when I say you, I mean your generation.
Right.
And your relationship with gold, or something that's been given to you as an asset class or heirloom of the family, you'll have a very different relationship.
Yeah.
So I think it'll be interesting to sort of see what could trigger there. And one of the things I feel is that today, if I have to give away my gold, right? Either I go to a jeweler who I don't know. There's a sense of embarrassment there, the sense of opaqueness at times. And if you were to ask me that what could be a brand new good idea, it would be the pawn shops done in a very sophisticated manner. You shouldn't call it pawn shop. You should float a brand that says, I will respectfully value your gold and give you your worth right away. I think would be a great area. Because again, as I said, the relationship will be different, and the sense of monetization, if it's done well, I mean, walk into my store with a bold way. Don't be embarrassed because you have to sell gold. And if you do it, I think when you say monetization, it has to be done in various levels. It cannot be an embarrassment for a family or a person, because today, I mean, you're a jeweler. When somebody comes, there is a sense of saying, okay, I'm in a tough spot, that's how I'm doing it. It shouldn't be like that. If we make those things a little more not subjective but pretty objective, and create solutions keeping a consumer at the center stage, new ideas will come up.
I think something that's coming top of mind for me in that is the luxury watches and the luxury bag space, which has done it really well, where the pre-loved items
Are coming
are,
out, yeah.
they've become a lot more liquid
Yeah.
and there's not that much shame associated with it as much as it's,
It's
we're
a
ready
fact of
to,
life.
yeah.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think we need to do better because,
Yeah.
yeah, it's a also it's a very deep rooted connection that you have
Yeah.
with it. And we've been told that when you sell gold, you're in a
Yeah.
deep, you generally this is a financial issue.
Signals
But I think,
distress, yeah.
yeah, so I think we have to do it better. And there's opportunity of in that space, I think.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much
Thank
for
you.
sharing that.
Yeah.
I think those were most of our questions.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Wonderful.
great. Thank you so much, Sachinji, for being here and taking out the time to educate us and give us some great insights on gold. I'm sure our viewers would really, really benefit from it.
I mean, we benefited from it, so it was really, really, really insightful. Thank you so much.
And we would implore everyone to go visit the World Gold Council's website. There are a lot of tools, a lot of research that we can refer to as the source of truth.
We've added some of the links and some of the tools and recommendations given by Sachin Ji in our description below, so you can always access it through that. Okay, so what is something new that you learned today that you didn't know before about gold? We'd love to know your responses, so feel free to comment. And let us know if you have any other burning questions around gold.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.